That's a good question, George. I'm not sure that all of them did leave, but the records seem to indicate around 1200 BC they started to phase off because the way you analyze it, the way I analyzed it, was they started teaching humans, us, how to be self-sufficient, how to learn some of the things that they knew, so that we don't hear about them after that period of time. And, of course, you may recall there was this great calamity that happened around 2000 BC, where they got into it between their various warring factions and produced a huge calamity, which we can talk about later.
Sure.
But I think that they may have gone back to their home planet. That's probably what happened, but there's no evidence. We don't, we've never had the cycle of seeing it. In recent recorded history, it hasn't appeared because it takes 3,600 years. And there's lots of people who tried to forecast when is the next appearance of Nibiru. And even I have done some of that. And it looks like it might be 300 years off in my guesstimation, but that's just a guess.
Do we look like them?
Oh, we are them.
We are them. I almost to
that's
the T.
the thing that you can say, look at you, look at me. We are descendants of the Anunnaki. We have their genes. If you look at the genome that was done on the human beings about 2001, I believe, they found that we had about 25,000 genes. But in that mix, there were 223 that were alien. They didn't know where they came from. And that kind of opens the boxes to what our history is. That we, according to the story, we are bicameral. In other words, we were cloned from Homo erectus into Homo sapiens. And we have no fossil remains of any species in between us, George. In other words, my missing link is what happened to all the species that evolved to produce us.
Yeah. We just jump-started. We were here, all of us.
That's a good phrase. We got jump-started by the Anunnaki as a species 250,000 years ago. And all the evidence appears that they were around, and before they phased off the planet, if they did, totally, they taught mathematics, astronomy, astrology, all the things that they knew that we would need. And then, of course, since we do have their genes, George, it makes sense that we've evolved to the technical edges of where they were.
We're getting really close, I think.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Now, are there any conflicts between these theories and what people read, what we read in the Bible?
Well, that's a good question, George. I mean, I read the Bible. I got into this search for who we were by being a biblical scholar. Okay. And then I got a highly technical education at Caltech, and I started to see similarities between what I was learning and what was being I read in the Bible. And I said to myself, whoa, how did they get so smart, whoever wrote the Bible? So I think I don't have any problem with faith. I'm a faith person. I believe in a creator of all. In other words, I've kind of adopted their God because I believe that, an interesting thing. I asked Linus Pauling, do you believe in God? And he said, Clarfeld, our discipline is to explain everything that's going on in the universe back to the beginning, which is the Big Bang. If you were to ask me what there was a millisecond before the Big Bang, we cannot answer that question. If you wish to believe in God, please do, because we don't know what there was just before the Big Bang.
Now, the talk in Genesis, fallen angels, the Nephilim.
The Nephilim, yeah, there they go. Right.
Are we being taught the Anunnaki, but in a different phrase, a different way?
I think so. I think, I take the word Nephilim, those who came from heaven to earth, as being the Anunnaki.
Or were there other races of ETs that came here?
I think so. I can't imagine that the Anunnaki were the only ones visiting Earth. In fact, with all the UFO activity over the last 40, 50 years, we must be something like a 7-Eleven.
Well, I think that though there must be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of civilizations throughout this universe.
I believe that.
I would guess that populated planets are few and far between when you look at how many are out there. And that means that planets like Earth must be seen as a gem, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember Orson Welles' program, The Invasion from Mars. He had people on the East Coast going out of their gourds because it sounded so real, and everybody was believing it. Well, here come the Martians, and they're bad, and they're going to...
The War of the Worlds.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I think here's a thought I've had in the years that I've been working with this subject, is that the destiny of this planet is determined by the physics of our sun. When the sun goes bye-bye, we go with it. And that's supposedly going to happen maybe 5 billion years from now, according to the predictions that I've been able to research. So the question is, how will humanity survive if its planet's gone? And my answer is, we got to find Earth 2 and populate it.
Absolutely.
How do you find Earth 2? Well, you go out in the solar system like some other folks have been doing, and you look around for green planets that you could occupy.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the proof behind this, proof behind these theories, and then we'll start moving outside of this region into some of the other areas, Egypt, the Easter Island statues, Nazca lines, and places like that. But what's out there? Because in your book, Adam, the Missing Link, you do have some illustrations, you do have photographs, you do talk about artifacts. Tell me about all these.
Well, I was trying to build a case, a factual case that there was evidence to prove that this planet was occupied by an advanced civilization, or whatever they called themselves. What is the proof? I put together in my book, as you said, George, 12 things that I think are enough evidence to say conclusively they were here. And the messages, that are buried in the pyramids and in Stonehenge and in many other artifacts that I point to in the book, gives you at least it gave me a very strong feeling that this civilization was here, and if they wanted to call themselves the Anunnaki, fine. But there were things that we couldn't do. There's many things like the Baalbek, Lebanon stones. Those are a mind blower.
They're huge
for an engineer. They just, I said, how did they do that? Who did this? How was that done? And I came to the realization that it had to be done by some super advanced civilization that was technically way ahead of anybody going around at that time. The Romans sure didn't do it.
The theories that Sitchin uses are based on Sumerian tablets he has interpreted. There are others who don't agree with. Mike Kaiser, for example, doesn't believe in his theory.
Right.
How do we know Sitchin's correct? How do we know Marshall Clarfeld is correct?
Well, you don't. The bottom line is you got to prove it to yourself. And the only way you can prove it to yourself is to examine the physical evidence that we present. Like in my book, I present 12 things that collectively speak and shout they were here.
Can we quickly go through these 12? Just kind of highlight them for me?
Sure.
Okay. 12 pieces of evidence that you, and some of this is physical? Or
well, most of it's physical.
Okay.
I felt that you needed to connect the dots. And the first one was Stonehenge. I've got a complete analysis of that. The second one was the landing platform at Baalbek, Lebanon
All right.
And they talk about it as a place where they came up and down. That was their landing site. And they put those stones there so they could